Welcome back to JA Finance Park Teacher Training. By now you should be familiar with the curriculum you'll be using to prepare your students for their capstone experience, whether that's the traditional, project-based learning, or self-guided version of the curriculum. This training will focus on information specific to the on-site simulation. To review the JA Finance Park program components, we're currently in teacher training. After training, classroom instruction begins with units on income, saving, investing, and risk management, debit and credit, and the Budget Plus unit. Volunteer integration, the secret sauce to JA programs, varies depending on the type of simulation your school will experience. For the on-site simulation we're discussing in this training, volunteers are integrated at the simulation experience at JA Finance Park presented by the Truist Foundation. For the virtual simulation, volunteers have created a library of video resources that are utilized within the classroom instruction and are not incorporated in the virtual simulation. That brings us to the JA Finance Park simulation, which we'll discuss in more detail in just a moment, followed of course by the debriefing activities to round out the program. Let's take a closer look at the students' JA Finance Park simulation or capstone experience. Be sure to make note of any questions you have as we go through the different portions of their on-site visit. After completing the 12 core lessons, students will visit the JA Finance Park facility for their capstone experience. Schools should plan to be on-site for 2.5 to 4 hours for a full simulation. The length of time depends on a few factors, including the size of the group, whether or not the students will bring lunches to JA or eat at school based on their school policies and transportation situation. Please work with the JA Finance Park manager to identify the simulation length that best fits your school's scenario. 2 weeks prior to your group's visit, the JA Finance Park manager will send you a template to use as you create student groups for their simulation. We ask that this be returned to the JA staff 1 week prior to the group's visit, knowing that there may be some last-minute changes depending on student absences the day of the visit. There are a few items educators should plan to bring with them to the simulation. First, an updated student groups sheet in the event of any absences or last-minute changes to student groups. Signed parent or guardian JA consent forms for every student. If the group will be eating at JA, students should also bring sack lunches. Refrigerators and microwaves are not available, so students should plan accordingly when packing lunches. Finally, teachers should be sure to review Junior Achievement's most recent summary of JA Finance Park COVID-19 policies and procedures for additional forms or health or safety steps prior to the simulation. This contains information about mask requirements, health screening, temperature checks, and other safety protocols and is subject to change based on guidance from JAUSA as well as federal, state, and local government and health authorities. During the simulation, students will put their learning into action. They will each receive a randomly assigned life persona, including a career, income, education, student loan debt, credit card debt, savings, and potentially a family. Their goal will be to make their budget work. Volunteers will attend a training prior to the student's arrival and will be assigned to work with a group of students, typically 4 to 6 students in each group. Volunteers serve as facilitators to guide students through the different stages of the simulation. Their role is to support and ask questions of the students and share a little about their own career experience. The majority of JA Finance Park volunteers come from JA's corporate partners, but if there are parents or school administrators interested in serving as volunteers, they are certainly welcome to do so and may reach out to the JA Finance Park manager for more information on how to register. During the simulation, teachers are to be present in the space as they listen and observe their students. They should be prepared to address classroom management issues with students if any arise, and depending on group size and volunteer numbers, teachers may be asked to step in and participate and should be prepared to do so. If students are bringing lunch to the JA Finance Park facility, teachers will also oversee the students during their lunch at JA. Our hope is that teachers have just as engaging and valuable of an experience as their students. By floating from group to group to listen in on student and volunteer conversations, teachers will be able to take dialogue back to their classrooms as part of the post-simulation debrief. Finally, JA staff will be present to oversee and run the simulation. We'll guide the group through each step of the capstone experience. When students arrive at the JA Finance Park facility, they'll gather in the Bank of America auditorium for a brief welcome and orientation of the space, expectations for the day, and steps of the simulation. Students will then be dismissed by group to their JA Finance Park storefront, where they'll meet their volunteer. Volunteers will then check out an iPad to each student and assign them an account number and associated PIN number. Students will then log into the JA Finance Park software and answer 5 lifestyle questions about their plans and hopes for their financial future. Following that, they'll see their persona for the day, including their career, income, education background, marital status, whether or not they have children, existing savings and debt, plus their credit score. They will calculate their net monthly income and their household net monthly income, adding spousal income for those who are in married scenarios. Volunteers will then lead a discussion on savings, and students will decide what they will set as a monthly savings goal and allocate that saving toward their retirement account, emergency fund, or other savings. The next phase is research. Students will move around the park with their groups, visiting each business representative of the different expense categories they'll encounter in their budget. Volunteers will briefly engage in short discussions with each group and provide a code for students to unlock their iPads for that particular budget category. The volunteer helps to spur discussion by utilizing a discussion question for each category. Please note that during this phase, the students will see the average cost of items for that particular category, but will not yet see specific prices. After completing the research phase, students will rotate through the next 3 stages of the simulation. They will either begin building their monthly budget based on their research and the discussions they had with volunteers, begin their shopping, or eat lunch. The rotation will depend on the size of the group and, of course, whether or not the students will be eating lunch at the JA Finance Park facility. For the budget phase, students will need to allocate 100% of their household net monthly income during this phase. Students will have the ability to spend more or less than they budgeted in each category during their shopping phase, but this will reflect how it is outside of the parameters they established for their budget or spending plan. As students begin the shopping phase, which they'll complete from their home storefronts, they discover the prices associated with goods or services in each expense category and discover how close they came to budgeting correctly based on their wants and needs. Students may spend more in a category than they budgeted for, but overall they may not spend more than their income. They also may not dip into their existing savings, and they can choose to change their monthly savings amount, but it may not dip below the 2% minimum required by the JA Finance Park program. Once they have selected all of the items they wish to purchase and have money remaining or a zero balance, students will pay for all of their items. Depending on the size of the group and time available at JA Finance Park, students may pay for some of their items with a JA Finance Park debit card by checking out at kiosks throughout the space. Other categories are paid for electronically through online payments on their iPads. When payment is finalized, the students will once again see the 6 lifestyle questions that they answered at the beginning of the simulation. Junior Achievement is interested in seeing if their responses have changed following the simulation experience. Students will also get a final report that appears on their tablet. In their assigned groups, the volunteer will help to debrief the experience, again with some guided questions, including revisiting JA's digital career book, where students can review careers of interest with the career from their randomly assigned life scenario, to look at differences in education, training, or salary range, as students think to their desired future rather than the one that was randomly assigned to them during the simulation. To wrap things up, the JA staff will gather students together at the end of the day for some closing comments before dismissing students to the buses one group at a time. Student reports from the simulation are available and will be emailed to the teachers the afternoon of the simulation. Teachers are encouraged to use these as part of the debrief lesson or discussion, and some teachers find it helpful to use these as a larger assignment or project grade in their classes. Following the simulation, there is a debrief lesson that provides students with an opportunity to reflect upon their experience and think about the planning that they can do now to help assure their future goals become reality. The debrief lesson looks a little bit different depending on which version of the curriculum students are using. However, all students are expected to take the post-program survey just as they took the pre-program survey prior to beginning the curriculum. The link for the post-program survey can be found in the Teacher Checklist PDF. The final steps of the program include a few forms for teachers to fill out to mark the end of their participation in the program. The first is the program verification form, which is a JAFP form link that is filled out ideally no more than 1 week after the student's simulation, and a teacher survey, which is optional but incredibly helpful for the JA staff as we continue to learn and improve on our program. Links for both of these are available in the Teacher Checklist PDF. Teachers are encouraged to bookmark the training video links for future reference. Be sure to save the teacher resources, specifically that Teacher Checklist PDF, to a safe place where you can easily access the links and arrange for picking up materials if you're using hard copies. On behalf of the JA of Middle Tennessee team, we look forward to working with you and your students and seeing you at the on-site simulation soon.